Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers, and the two of us are here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And we welcome in someone today who's very much in the spotlight. A lot of people turning their attention toward the Oklahoma City public school system and this guest.
Yes, we did a show a couple of weeks ago about the Oklahoma City Public School Foundation, and now we're today going to welcome to the set of The Verdict the boss of the Oklahoma City Public School System, subject to other folks that may have a say-so. The new superintendent, Aurora Lora, is going to join us and talk about what she hopes for the school system and what she intends to try to implement.
It is the largest school system in the state of Oklahoma. Aurora Lora, today's guest on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
I've known I was going to be an artist since I was a little kid. I still have teachers that in grade school that still have my artwork. I think I told them something along the lines, this is keep that, it's going to be worth money someday. I'm Justin Mader, I'm an artist, and I'm Chickasaw. My muse is the Muskokean, Mississippian art. When I see that, my mind just fills up with bubbles of ideas. My big thing right now is shell carving, the shell gorgets. My work is refined more and more until I found my own rhythm. I also do metallurgy, where I've been acid etching copper and hammering copper to make a copper repoussé. You only have one chance to do it right, so it requires a lot of planning and thought and just patience. My Chickasaw heritage is the foundation of who I am. It's the roots of where I come from, and it inspires me as an artist and inspires the tenacity of never giving up.
Learn more about today's Chickasaws at profilesofanation.com.
We are back live on The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
It is really pleasant for us to introduce to you, if you haven't met her already, Aurora Lora, the new superintendent of the Oklahoma City Public School System. Aurora did her undergraduate work at the University of Texas, got a master's degree in education from Harvard University, began teaching as an elementary school teacher. She has been in a principal position both in middle school and high school. She's been in administrative positions in Seattle and Dallas, and we were lucky enough to get her a couple of years ago to come up here in the Oklahoma City Public School System, and just within the last 2 or 3 weeks, she's been named the new superintendent of the Oklahoma City Public School System. This is her first visit, and we sure hope it's not her last visit to The Verdict. Aurora, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here today.
You've become inspired as an adult to get involved in education. Think back through your childhood years. What do you think it was that's planted that seed someday about being an educator?
You know, for me, it was actually when I was right after I graduated from high school. I attended a low-income school in El Paso, Texas, and graduated valedictorian of that school. And when I got to college, I was really unprepared for the rigors of college. I've told people that I had my first college essay torn up by my professor, and he asked me who taught me how to write like that. And it was that story, after having had straight A's all through school, that made me really frustrated that my high school had done so little to prepare me for college. So I decided at that point that someday I wanted to go into teaching to make sure that kids, when they graduate from high school, are prepared, even if they're from low-income communities like the one I came from. So that's what inspired me to join Teach for America, and that experience changed my life.
You must have worked really hard then as an undergraduate coming in, if you were that far behind, to catch up and then ultimately wind up at Harvard after that.
Yeah, I really did. You know, I called my mom that night crying, thinking maybe I just wanted to drop out and go back to El Paso. I had to get tutoring. I had to kind of swallow my pride and realize I needed a lot of help. I really struggled in a lot of classes my first semester, but I turned my story around. But for many of the people from my graduating class in high school, they didn't have the same situation to be able to turn their situations around. So it definitely was challenging, but by the end of college, I had definitely kind of stepped up. I was doing much better, and later on ended up going to Harvard.
Well, how did you get in the Teach for America program?
So Teach for America takes college graduates who possibly didn't study education. I didn't study education in undergrad.
What was your undergraduate major?
It was psychology.
Oh.
So, and recruits them to go teach for 2 years in either inner city schools or rural communities. And so what started as a 2-year commitment for me really changed my life when I got into inner city Houston as a 4th grade teacher. And I decided after the end of my 2 years that I wanted to commit my life to public education and making a difference for kids in this nation.
Was it an eye-opening experience to walk into that urban environment in Houston as a 22-year-old, I guess?
It was, but the kids were just so wonderful and so full of hope, and I think made such tremendous gains in the course of their 4th grade experience with me. And I think that's what made me realize that when teachers hold high expectations for kids and put high levels of support in place, they absolutely will rise to the challenge. And so it was just a really, really positive experience for me. Teach for America ended up writing a book about my 4 years of teaching in inner city Houston. And everything just kind of took off from there.
Did you go to get your master's right after the University of Texas, or did you teach for a while before you did that?
So right after University of Texas, I taught for 4 years in inner city Houston, and then decided that someday I wanted to go become a principal and then a superintendent. So I went to Harvard at the end of my 4th year of teaching. My school was actually closing for low enrollment anyway, so it was the perfect transition time to the next step of my career.
Did you find the practical experience of teaching for 4 years to be of benefit to you in your master's program?
Absolutely. I think what was great about my experience is I had a lot of real world stories to share with my classmates at Harvard about what these theories look like when they're on the ground. So I think it benefited not only me to have those experiences, but also my classmates for me to be able to share them.
And how did you first get involved with the Oklahoma City public school system?
So 2 years ago, I was looking for new opportunities. I knew my dream was someday to become a superintendent, and that's when Oklahoma City was looking for a new superintendent as well. And so the
year-wide, nationwide search.
They'd done a nationwide search. The search firm reached out to me and asked if I would consider Oklahoma City, and I started to look into it. I started to research, fell in love with the city, and ended up applying and making it all the way to the finals. So I interviewed with the board twice, and I was really disappointed when I didn't get it. Mostly because I loved the city so much. I really liked the board, I loved the people, I love what this community stands for. So even when I was not selected, I still came here anyway when they offered me a different position.
Well, tell us about your reaction when you were notified very recently that you had been selected as superintendent.
It's still, I just feel so honored to be here, to have been selected. It's still a little bit surreal for me just because this has been my dream that I've been working on for 16 years, and I cannot imagine a place where I'd rather be the superintendent. So I just feel completely honored, and I just love going to work every day here. The city makes me really happy.
Yeah, I always hear educators saying, it's the people that are involved, it's not the system. And so people will say the most important thing is teachers, and other things will say the most important thing is the principals, and the others will say, well, it's the most important thing is parent involvement. And so how do you break down all of those things that seem to be so important? And I suggest that the real answer is probably some combination of all three, but as a superintendent, you've kind of got to play with those three ideas.
You really do. And in our district strategic plan that we're working on right now, you'll see elements of all of those. It's about having a great teacher in every classroom, a great principal in every building, a community and parent base that's involved and engaged in our schools. And so I think all of it really is important to make a big difference for our city.
In round numbers, how many students will be enrolling in the fall? What's your expectation?
We have in our district, for our regular schools and charters combined, we have a total of about 46,000 students.
Wow, that's obviously the largest school system in Oklahoma, I take it. What kind of challenge does that give you to try to tailor a plan that will suit the needs of 46,000 disparate kids?
Well, I think the biggest challenge right now is just the lack of funding in education. We're trying to continue on our path with the strategic plan, but this is going to be a really tough year when we've had to increase class sizes, not purchase new textbooks, those kind of things. So there are a lot of different needs, and it's going to be a challenging year just because our resources are so limited right now.
Yeah, a lot of people think about the teaching in the classroom, but you have to transport these kids around the city with a bus system. You have to feed them, in many cases, breakfast and lunch. And and that's just kind of the start of the process. I mean, society expects a lot of their inner city public school system these days. Talk about those additional roles that our average viewer might not initially think about when they think of the school superintendent and their responsibilities.
Yeah, we do have a lot of needs for our students. This is a place where kids are getting a healthy breakfast and lunch, and so that's why we want to make sure that we've got great food options for all children. But it's bigger than that. A lot of our kids come to school with mental health needs that are distracting them from learning sometimes, so we have to step in and be a counselor, help provide them with services. Some of our kids don't have coats in the winter, so we're working with our foundation to try and make sure every kid has a coat and a pair of gloves and a hat. It's a lot more than just education. Like, we have to step up and make sure that we're kind of filling all the other needs of the students as well, just to make sure they can focus on learning when they're with us.
Yeah. So do you run from those problems? I mean, do you ever just say, look, I just want to teach these kids. I don't want to have to be responsible for this holistic responsibility. I would expect that would be somewhat frustrating when educators are always piled on one more role. We put one more role on the education system as opposed to trying to get these kids to learn.
Yeah, well, I definitely think we want to be able to focus on teaching and making sure kids are learning, but these are kids, and they have so much hope and potential, and we as a city have to figure out how do we wrap our supports and love around them and meet whatever needs that they have. And it is our job to make sure that we're helping to grow great citizens, not only who have the knowledge and skills to do whatever career they want to do in their life, but also who are good, strong citizens and healthy people.
Well, my impression is that you embrace these challenges because you love kids.
I do.
And you love the system. I mean, it comes across. We'll have more with Aurora Lora right after this break.
With the invention of prosthetics, loss of limb no longer meant loss of hope. The turning point? A scientist inspired by the flexibility made possible by natural gas components. Mankind's greatest achievements are often made possible with components from oil and natural gas. With our generation's ingenuity, these abundant Oklahoma resources will continue to unlock opportunity for people around the globe.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers and our guest, Oklahoma City School Superintendent Aurora Lora. We touched on some of the larger challenges that the district faces. Expand on those and illustrate to our viewers, you know, the challenges of an inner city district and what you and the other educators face.
You know, one of the big challenges that we are facing right now, not just in Oklahoma City, but all across our state, has to do with teacher pay. Currently, all of our surrounding states pay teachers significantly more than what they make in Oklahoma. And that's really presenting a lot of challenges with us being able to recruit teachers for every one of our classrooms, and just making sure every kid has access to a great teacher. Every year we've had vacancies that have gone unfilled all year, and the problem continues to get worse with the budget situation that we're in.
What are class sizes?
It varies. At the elementary level, we just increased class sizes by 1 student for this coming year. But average class size is probably around 24 to 26 at elementary and probably around 30 for middle and high school.
There's been a lot of studies about class size, and you know, some people say it can actually be too small, and others can say it definitely at some point it reaches large. What's your comfort zone in as far as an average class size? Where do you think it really drops off and starts to impact the education that a kid's going to receive?
I don't know that I would assign an actual number to where that impact is, because it really depends on kind of the needs of the students in your class and the mix of personalities you have, and the skill level of the kids coming in. So it really ranges. I will say, and a lot of the research says that one of the most important things has to do with teacher quality, not necessarily class sizes. So if you've got a great teacher, they're going to be able to do great things. But I will say, when I was a 4th grade teacher, I had 16 students my first year and 32 students my second year. It's not the same. It is much more challenging to handle a large class like that.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, talk a little bit, if you will, about the type of high school graduate we're producing in Oklahoma City now. I mean, in the recent past, of course. We're about to start a new year with new expectations and hopes. You talked about your own experience graduating from a school that did not necessarily prepare you for what you were to face. Are we graduating students that are, most of whom are reasonably prepared for what they're going to face?
You know, I really worry that that we're not doing a good enough job of making sure kids are prepared for challenges at the next level. We do have some data that shows the percentage of our graduates who go on to college in Oklahoma universities, and what percentage of them have to take remediation courses, and it is staggeringly high. And so that to me tells me that it's not enough just to make sure kids get to the graduation line. We have to do a better job of increasing the rigor, making sure they're taking challenging courses, making sure that we're teaching them how to be good writers and consumers of information, so that when they get there, they're not having to take remediation courses. So we've got a lot of work to do. Not just in our state, but also in our nation, to make sure that the kids coming out of our system are competitive worldwide for exciting jobs and opportunities.
What areas do you have the most difficulty finding the right teacher? Where are the shortages?
We definitely have a shortage in teachers for special education classes. That is a very challenging field to find qualified people who are interested in doing that in Oklahoma. But we also need advanced math and science teachers, and also people who are bilingual and can teach Spanish or ESL courses. Those are definitely some areas that we are always looking for great candidates in.
Do you have a number of students in the public school system, in your recent experience, that do not speak English well? It's not their first language? We
do. We have a number and a growing kind of population of students, not just who might speak Spanish as their first language, but other languages as well.
Yeah.
And so that is definitely a population that is expanding in Oklahoma City, and we need to do a better job of making sure that we're training teachers on how to meet the needs of students if they come in and they don't speak English. How do we communicate with families and make sure that their families know what we're doing in the school district and kind of understand the information that we're sending home, and that they feel welcome to even come up to the school if they're worried that they don't speak English.
What can an alum or a parent do that's in the district right now and wants to help you and the others be successful, but they don't know really where to touch base?
Yeah, so there are a couple great things that people can do right now. Through our work with the foundation, we have got something called Partners in Action, where schools go on and put whatever kind of needs they have on this website. And so they'll tell you if your neighborhood school needs some reading tutors, or if they need a donation of mittens for some kids who don't have gloves, or those kind of things. So you can get on this website, see what your local school needs, and find ways to help kind of plug into the things that the schools are desperate for.
Partners in Action.
It's
Is
called
that .com?
Well, if you go to the Oklahoma City Schools Foundation website, that's where you can access that.
All right, and it's an opportunity for people to see what teachers' real life needs are and to try and meet those needs, and it just takes a few minutes.
Yeah, the other thing that people can do is there's another website that we're using a lot called DonorsChoose.org, and this is a national organization or website where teachers go online and post things that they need for their classroom that their school can't afford. So a teacher might go on there and post that they need a new set of dictionaries for their class or some art supplies because the budget got cut. And what's great is you can find projects from teachers all across the city. If you go on there and pledge $25 for what they need, you end up getting some thank you cards. You get to see how the kids are using it. It's really heartwarming, and it's another easy way that people can get online and find a cause they really care about, or a teacher at a school that they really care for. And I'd encourage everyone to get on there, and then you can post it to social media and tell all your friends that you donated.
Well, and another benefit of that, I guess, is that if a potential donor has a particular school in mind, or a particular class in mind, or a particular teacher in mind, they can narrow it down, focus it down that narrowly, and make a direct difference.
Exactly. So you can do a search for a specific school. You can do a search for specific types of projects. So like if you really care about arts, you can find teachers looking for arts materials, those kind of things. It's a way to really tailor to, people who are able to donate a little bit of money and to make a big difference in our schools.
I'm seeing a lot of the private sector interest in supporting the sports and the arts, because they know that's two areas that get squeezed in tight funding situation. Tim McLaughlin and Field and Futures is helping to rebuild the physical sports facilities at the schools, and Allied Arts is helping with so many programs, trying to get kids music lessons and things like that. But you're relying more and more on those types of efforts. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know where we would be without those types of partners who are really stepping up and helping us fill those needs right now. Our kids deserve to have great sports opportunities, arts opportunities. These are things that help make them well-rounded adults, and unfortunately our budget situation is so tough that those are some of the first things to get cut, and we don't want to do that because we don't think that that's good for kids. So we are so grateful to those partners, and what I'm hoping is eventually the funding will come back, because we as a district should be stepping up to make sure that all kids have access to these opportunities. It's just right now our funding is so terrible.
Yeah, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but the role of superintendent in Oklahoma City is kind of a little bit of a revolving door. I can't tell you how many superintendents I've dealt with over the last 10 to 15 years. How committed are you to sticking this out and for the long term?
I'm really committed. This is the first city where I've actually wanted to buy a house and make this my long-term home. So I just bought a new house.
That's a good sign.
I'm here for 15 years, so I love it. This is the people here are just so great. This is someplace where I want to be for a long time. And the other thing is, I only want to do one superintendency. I want to be somewhere for a long time, because I think to truly make lasting change for a city, you have to have stability and give things enough time to actually work. And so I think it's going to take at least 5 years for us to really be able to turn this district around.
She is Aurora Lora, superintendent at Oklahoma City Public Schools. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Kent and
it.
I'll have a final word after this.
That's great.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now And 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
You have children coming from a different lifestyle, different mindset. You have to open your arms and really do what you have to do to have that child become a part of your family. And if it's more patience, that's what you do. Kids gotta know they can trust you. And that's what we try to do with these kids.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Mick Cornett and Kent Myers wrapping up a show with Aurora Lora, the Oklahoma City Public Schools superintendent, and she's delightful.
Well, she really is, and it bodes well, I think, for the Oklahoma City Public School System to have a new superintendent with already a couple of years' experience here, knowing about the problems and the challenges and the opportunities. Her personal story, I think, as you mentioned to me off camera, was, I think, compelling, and I think that has guided her well and will continue to do so here.
She mentioned Partners in Action as an organization that you can help an individual teacher just by going on the School Foundation's website. Some other website information, more information about that district at okcps.org. That's okcps.org. We have a website, theverdict.tv, and we'll see you next week right here on The Verdict.